Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Novak, and this is Point of Reference. Tonight, we talk about the Merrimack River and the Clean River Project with Dennis Houlihan, the project's education coordinator, who is here to tell us what their actions mean to you and your future and how you just may want to get involved. Join me in welcoming Dennis Houlihan. Welcome, Dennis.
Hi, Frank. How you doing?
Can you tell us about, relative to the Merrimack River, I guess, and all the people that it happens to affect, what is the Clean River Project and when did it start?
Well, it started actually about 10 years ago, but we really got active 8 years ago. A fellow named Rocky Morrison and myself, we lived right near the river. I actually live on the river now. I moved closer to the river because I loved it so much. Now we moved from Dracut to Methuen area. And Rocky was the kind of guy that, he was involved in construction and stuff like that. So he was around the kind of work that we needed to do this job. But we looked at all the trash that was collecting on the banks of the Merrimack River up in the Dracut, Methuen, Andover, North Andover area. And it was kind of like a selfish thing at first because we looked at it as it was embarrassing for us to bring friends out in our boats and they saw all this trash. And so Rocky used to say, we should do something about it. And a lot of people said we should do it, but Rocky was the guy that said, let's do it. So he took an old pontoon boat, and he put it together and made it usable, and we got a bunch of neighbors together, and we started our first cleanup of the river. We had a scavenger hunt. We had people actually decorated their boats and did all kinds of themes, and we gave prizes out. Local merchants donated some stuff to us, and we started collecting the trash. And we gave prizes for the biggest, the best, the strangest, whatever objects we could find in this river to take out. And when I say objects, I'm talking about televisions, computers, kids' toys, refrigerators, air conditioners. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Anything that would float kept going down the river and got out of our way, but the rest of it stayed on the banks of the river. So we decided we're going to start doing it. So that first year, we ended up filling up 3 30-yard dumpsters. Those are those great big dumpsters that you see in the back of the 18-wheelers.
Right.
We filled 3 of them. It took us all day, one day when we did this, but it took us 3 days to move all that trash from the collection point to where we were going to have the dumpsters. So 3 days after that, we kept working by ourselves. We didn't have the full crew with us.
So you're telling me this entire concept and forward-moving thinking idea started with you and Rocky having a conversation pretty much like on the back porch and saying, you know what we should do? And then instead of just talking about it, you actually did it.
Yeah.
And it was just started with you too. And tell me, over the years, how large has this organization of volunteers? You have volunteers.
It's only volunteers, yeah. We are a nonprofit organization now, a 501(c)(3) classified, 501(c) classified nonprofit, and that only means that we can do this and actually get grants and things like that. You know, we can go out and try to get some grants to help support this. We didn't have the funds at first to do it, and it was just whatever we could scrounge together and put together, nuts and bolts, and we were all pretty. You get somebody that's a plumber. Oh, can you help us? You can weld? Oh, great. You know, let's help us out here. You know, so we got all these different people from different walks of life that come down and help us out. Somebody knew how to type and use a computer. Well, maybe they can check out some stuff for us. So we started doing that. We pretty much, after a few years, it took us years after collecting all this trash. It took us that much longer to say, well, let's see what else we can do. Let's start going down the river. Let's start going up the river. We went up to Lowell. We got a lot of people involved up there. Different organizations like the 3M Corporation, Keurig Coffee Company, Siemens Business Technologies. All of those people started helping us out. It stopped,
like sponsors, right?
Yeah, well, not only just sponsors. They started sending people and giving them the day off from work and paying them for the day's work.
Active participation.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, Keurig Coffee Company has done, like the last couple of years, they've sent as many as 300 people for 3 days. I mean, it's like 100 each day, 100 people, a crew in the morning, a crew in the afternoon, and they paid for their time and they gave them a half a day off on top of it, so they care. You know, Keurig Coffee is also Green Mountain, the same people.
Let me get this straight. When you're talking about the different things that you're doing in your Clean River Project and how it benefits the communities that are along the river within the proximity of what you're able to work with, then all of this is done with private funds and donations.
All
and it's
of it.
all volunteers.
Yep.
And there's nobody on the payroll.
Nobody, not
So this
not
is as
one.
pure a benefit directly associated to the community probably as you can get.
Yep.
And you're always looking for volunteers to get involved as well. And we've got a series of pictures too to be able to go ahead and show show our viewing audience as an example, as just one example of some of the stuff that you happen to take out the river. But keep on going if you want.
Our river starts out up in the White Mountains and comes all the way down, and a lot of towns all the way along that stretch of the way all take the water out of there and use it for their drinking water. And a lot of people don't realize that. And many towns are doing this, like Lowell, definitely. And people don't realize in Andover that they get their water from the Haggett's Pond. Well, Haggett's Pond, actually, in 2012, they put 2.9 billion gallons of water they sucked out of the Merrimack River to keep Haggett's Pond filled up, to give it enough water to supply their drinking water. So that's billion, not million. And so they're using a lot of water. And once it gets past Lawrence, past the dam in Lawrence, then it starts becoming a mixture of salt water, and it's also controlled by the tides. So we don't have that from Lawrence all the way up to the White Mountains. There's no tide involved in it. It's just straight out.
How is that different? I know that you have saltwater content, you're saying, but this is, when you're talking about Haverhill, Haverhill is so far in, as an example, for a community that's on the river from the mouth of the Merrimack into the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, are you saying that I know it's affected by the tide where the river rises and falls, and that's okay, but is that the only way? Or is there actually a salt content this far down?
Oh, I think, it's definitely some mixture in the Haverhill area. You get salt up there. You're getting a lot of the fish from the ocean come that way. The only reason our project really was in Methuen was because we lived in Methuen. That's where it started out. The town of Methuen kind of started complaining a little bit because we were taking so much trash out of the river, and they said that they didn't want to have to be responsible for paying for disposing of all this trash.
But it was in the river, on the banks of the river, in Methuen to begin with.
But it wasn't all Methuen. It was it was Methuen, and the other side of the river was Andover side. And and they said, but all this trash that's floating down is coming from anywhere along the whole river, all the way up to the White Mountains. So Methuen's kind of right in a way, because they're saying, it's not our trash, it's not Methuen people throwing the trash in there. This stuff that's floating down could come all the way from up mountain. One time I found a plastic...
I'm just going to say, theoretically, if you didn't want to pay attention to it until it floated down to the next community, let the next community take care of it. I mean, it's like kicking the can down the road.
But every dumpster that we fill in Methuen, that we fill with trash, is that much stuff that never made it to Haverhill and never made it to any of the towns all the way down to the mouth of the river, I mean, to the ocean. So all those towns are being benefited by us stopping it. The buck stops here, Methuen, boom, we're stopping it. You know, we put yellow big collectors, we call them trash booms. We put them out in the river at Methuen in about 8 locations where the current flows, and those things fill up with trash. And when they get full, then we make a circle out of them, we bring them to a collection area, we take all the trash out, we get volunteers to rake through it and separate the recyclable stuff and just take it all out.
I'm going to ask you this question. Is the trash that you're catching as time goes on in this water, is it old trash, or is it because you'd like to think that as time goes on, there's a certain shift in the mindset of the public where they're more conscientious about not wanting to pollute the water? I mean, this goes back to when factories used to dump their waste in the water and municipalities used to dump their waste in the water. And that's changed dramatically from townships, municipalities, and factories don't do that, can't do that anymore. Are you telling me people are still doing it, though?
People are definitely still doing it, but all you have to do to think about that is just look on the streets anywhere. It doesn't have to be the river; it just has to be streets, and you see the amount of trash. I mean, I go into elementary schools and I give presentations to the children, and I tell them that you don't have to just think about Clean River Project. Take your little area of your street where you live. If you see trash out on your street, why don't you get some of your friends together and start a Smith Street project instead of Clean River Project? And you could have your little group cleaning that particular area.
Is part of the problem that if it's in the river, sometimes you can't see this trash because it's under the top? And if it's under the top, does it still float that way to these catch areas you're talking about?
Some of it moves along with the tide, and some of it with the current, and especially in the spring when the river's really ripping and starts to get moving. Like right now, today, I just looked at the chart. It was 37,000 cubic feet per second of a cubic feet. 37,000 cubic feet per second.
Unfathomable.
That's how fast that river's moving right now, today, on this day. And in the summertime, it can get as low as 650 cubic feet per second. So that's how the difference can be. So it moves.
Let's take a look at some of the impact you and the group that you're part of, Clean River Project, has had actually, we're going to take, of the several pictures that we had access to, we took a series using one particular issue. And if the control room's going to be ready in just a moment, we're going to try to run that first picture to show some of the elements and the tools that you happen to use when you were out there on the river with your volunteers. And here we go. Here's the first picture. These are barges, or what are these things?
They're pontoon boats. They're you could call it a barge, but they're homemade.
Yeah.
Then it's not something you can go to a store and buy. Go to a marina and buy.
Okay.
They're put together. We actually have somebody fabricate the pontoons, and we bolt them on, and we put plywood platform on the top.
Right.
One of our newer ones has a little crane now, a hydraulic crane getting mounted on the top of it through donations from some great people that have done that for us.
And how long, when you take these, you start out in the morning and you put those out in the water?
Yeah.
You start at what time in the morning, let's say?
Usually when we start a cleanup project, we start about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning.
And you run until how late?
Till usually 5 in the afternoon.
And let's take a look at the next slide, if we can, so that the people are be able to go in and take a look at that. This next one, if you can tell us what this is about. These are people, are they scavenging, taking a look at low tide to see what's out there that they can pick up?
Yeah, we had to wait till the tide went out. This is a group from Siemens Business Technology. You see on their shirt, Siemens.
Yep.
And those guys, there was 18 of them that day. And they came out with us, and they didn't know what they were going to find or what they were going to do. A lot of people think we float around on our boats and we scoop things up with nets.
Yeah.
But that's not it. You have to go in the water. I mean, sometimes the people are walking up to their necks in the water to find some of this stuff. And when you see it, you have to dig it out. You have to get it out. Every tire that you might see that we take out, the tire is completely filled with mud. It would take a pretty strong person to pick up one of them.
If we come back now, we just want to ask this question too. Those people that we saw from that organization coming out there, and you said that in some cases they'll send out several at a time.
Sure.
They'll pay the payday, but they'll just say they want you to go and use your time constructively in this volunteer effort. Is it kind of an adventure for them, or are some people approach it apprehensively?
It is. It gets to be fun. You get a bunch of people together, men and women, that get into it, and the dirtier and muddier they get, the more they laugh about it, and it just gets to be incredibly. It gets to be a fun day. But those guys, those people, I have to really give them credit. They've done it a few times with us now, and they don't get their day off. They do this on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Really?
Yeah. Siemens is a great company, but they're not paying these guys for the day
off. So volunteer effort at its finest example. Yeah. Let's take a look at the next slide too. So if we continue that along, we're going to take a look and see what the yield is. And this is going to be a little bit of a video here. If we can start that video. And it looks like a bucket brigade.
Yeah, we had to hurry on this because the tide was as the tide was coming in, of course, it's going to get harder and harder to do. So these guys, rather than walking and carrying the tires, they had to do that. But each tire that they pulled out, they had to roll it and kick it and shake it to get the mud out of it.
Yeah, I saw the fellow do that.
So they could move that because they're not even movable when they're filled up like that. So they started making piles. Now this is an area in Haverhill where the current and through the years and through storms and that brought them down. It seemed to be a little cove area that trapped all these tires.
Really?
And once there was tires trapped, then they became a little wall for the next tires that came down to get up stuck against. So before you know it, you had all these tires backing up along the whole area.
So that acted as a catch-all almost to benefit it, so to help that. Did you put one in place after? Did you put, not any old tires, but you put anything in place after that to catch those tires, other tires that were coming down?
No, they'll just move and we'll catch them as they come now.
Okay.
Now it'll start building up again. But those tires, I mean, they sit there, but they start to rot.
Yeah.
And before you know it, the tires, all the pieces of rubber are all coming off them, and that's all going down going down into the ocean. The fish are starting to, you know, they'll be eating it and everything.
Really? Let's take a look at this next slide too to see what the end result is of that brigade that they happen to have for passing the tire from one to the other. Here are a couple of piles as an example. This is just this is a small example of what you folks may be able to accomplish on any given day, no?
This was all done in 1 6-hour tide change, because once we had these piles, we had to get them out of there before the tide came in and washed them back and washed them over again. So I started pulling in with the boats, and these guys help us load the tires on the boats, then we'd bring them back to the site right near the marina down there. We had, what's the name? You know the name of the marina there.
Right, the one in Haverhill?
Yeah.
Right, that's a Crescent Yacht Club?
Yeah, the Crescent.
Yeah.
Crescent. So it was right next to there is where we were set up, our staging area. And in that day, in a 6-hour tide change, those guys managed to pull out 997 tires.
In 6 hours?
6 hours. And not just tires, they also almost filled the 30-yard dumpster with other trash that was just metal and paper and recyclable stuff. Bottles, cups, you name it, it was all down in there.
You know what, this is going to be interesting. Everybody you've seen so far, we've taken the sequence of events of the different things and the different tires that have been piled up. Let's take a look at the last slide we've got here. It is fascinating when you should take a look at that. And this is the end result of maybe one of those days. That's a portion of that 900 tires.
That's the same day right there.
Right there.
That's 997 tires in that pile right there. They really wanted to stay a little bit longer to see if they could make an even 1,000, but the tide had come in and we had already cleaned them off the banks, and that was the way they had to go. They were way out in the middle.
The fact is now, when you take this debris from the river, not only do you clean the river, it's got to be better for the quality of the water, it's got to be better for the quality of the fish that are in the water.
Right.
Does it also make it more navigable for boats, and does it help the water flow a little more freely? I would imagine you take tons and tons of this stuff out of there.
Well, I would hope that what's going to happen now, once the tires are removed, now that sand can move along and get that out of there, because it starts to build the sand up. Of course, then the boats can't go in that area at all. So now with the current flowing, it starts washing the sand, and the water will get deeper by natural erosion.
How often do you go out on these types of ventures when you have this Clean River project with your volunteers?
We do as many as we can during the season. Usually we'll start this year, we'll start around middle of May, and we'll go right up until October. And we'll probably do 12, 14 different days like that.
Really?
And then other than that, we maintain the areas that we have. Like we'll be down in Haverhill in the area that we cleaned, and we'll drive up and down there along the banks, and we see some new trash there, we'll pull over and pick it up. And Methuen area, we patrol that a lot. I'm there all the time. I run tours in the summertime.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, the tours are kind of fun. That's one of the things I like a lot. It's part of my educational part of it, besides going into the schools and dealing with the college and the high school and elementary school level children and telling them about it. I take people out on a tour. We took an old workboat, we turned it into a tour boat. It's pretty comfortable, nice boat. And I do a little history tour. I tell them about Clean River Project, how we started, what the kind of stuff we found, what we did. And I go all the way back from the Native Americans that were there through the Industrial Revolution up to the current day now, and tell them what it was like before the bridge came across the river up in Methuen area, and how the trolleys used to come all the way from Boston all the way up to Canopy Lake and Rockingham Racetrack, and then it would go all the way to Lowell. And there was an amusement park along the river that was taken out during a big flood. And so there's a lot of great history to see there, and still some of the remnants of the amusement park are still there to be seen.
This is where?
In Methuen.
And this is, and when do these tours start?
I usually start around June, very early June.
How many people can get on this boat?
Right now, we're kind of like renovating the boat, make it a little bit bigger, another boat actually probably. And it's going to be, we could probably take 14 people, but right now it was 10. But we're hoping the new boat will be able to take maybe 14 people at a time.
So this is sort of a neat byproduct. After you clean the river, you can go ahead and give people tours and tell them about the historical aspects of this. What's the cost in something of that type? And this all goes to the Clean River Project.
Yeah, well, it's not actually a charge. It's a donation.
Really?
We hope, hopefully people will give us a $20 a person donation for it. Some people give us more.
Yep.
You
And
know,
this lasts, how long does the tour last?
about 2 hours, an hour and a
Wow,
half
that's
to
pretty
2
good.
hours. And I let people bring food and beverages with them on the boat. I've done everything from children's birthday parties, people's anniversary parties, just going out for
Any
a day.
particular day that this happens on more than others? Is it a
No.
weekend day?
No, I try to schedule it. I'm retired now. I'm retired from teaching in from high school teaching, and I take the people out usually anytime. It's always by appointment. I don't have
Really?
I don't just sit there by the dock waiting for people to show up.
What a great alternative thing for people
Yeah.
to do if they're looking for something unique and different to do, and
Sure.
take a look in your own backyard, because so many times people will drive miles and miles and miles to sort of find something interesting to do,
Sure.
and they don't know what's going on in their own backyard.
Yeah, it's a beautiful section of the river up there. In the fall, I do a lot of foliage tours.
That's great.
I've had people like the Red Hat Lady Society.
Yeah.
They come out on a boat with us, and I have a lot of repeat customers that they come back themselves, either all of them, or they have new people, or newbies that they bring with them and show them that.
It would be pretty difficult, I would imagine, to be able to conduct that sort of a tour had the Clean River Project not preceded your tours, because you'd be looking at a lot of stuff that was not so great.
Yeah, we'd have people saying, "Oh, that's a shame, that's a shame, that's a shame," you know.
I've got to ask you this.
Yeah.
Coming out of the winter season, are there any particular challenges that the Clean River Project volunteers have with the river being frozen, and with the, with the ice and all the other challenges that go along with that? Are there any strange things that happen that you have to contend with when the winter season is over?
Mainly trees and broken trees that float down the river. They cause a jam up, and they start collecting the trash. And so for us, it's a little bit heavier project where we actually have to get in there and free those trees and get them out of there, clean up the trash with our trash booms, catching those. And we take the trees and we actually bring them to our work site, and we cut them up and we give the wood away to people that need it.
So if people wanted to get involved in being able to go ahead, I can't think of something that would benefit them more than being able to do something in your own backyard through a major river. Merrimack River is not just a stream or a little tributary, it's a major river coming through this. And if somebody wanted to get involved in that, they can be in contact with you. If they were to Google, Clean River Project Haverhill, they could get a whole host of information about what it is that you folks happen to do and how they can get involved too, no?
If they just have to get on and say cleanriverproject.org, and they'll get our whole website, and you could follow along with us and find out when our next cleanup is going to be, when we're looking for volunteers, and come and join us. That would be great. We'd love to have that. Anybody that can help us any other way, that maybe they know a way to get a grant for us or something, to get some donations that we could help this project keep moving along, because we obviously we can't do it without any funds.
I've got to tell you, there's a height of irony here that I want you to sort of confirm for me, and that is that this is totally a volunteer organization. Nobody is on the payroll. Everybody is in this to be able to create a benefit for the community overall.
Yep.
So that being the case, is it not true that as you've been out on the boats and other members of the crew have been out on their boats, they've actually assisted and helped organizations that are charged with clean water and things of that, whether they're governmental agencies or not, and they draw a paycheck, and you guys are helping them out?
That's true. Very true.
Give us an example of that.
Well, we get out there all the time. If I see something that's obviously somebody's dumping something in the river, or a pipe going in where something that shouldn't be going into the river is going in, I'll notify the EPA and let them know about it. Well, we've had the Coast Guard out with us, helping us. We've also helped in retrieval of some bodies that were in the river, some poor souls that were lost in the river for whatever reason, and we've helped with that. We've had people going out there with cadaver dogs, and actually the dogs rode on the boat with us and sniffed the water, trying to find out where the person might be. And
you've also you've retrieved a lot of different things. You've mentioned whether that be metal or tires or all kinds of things, plastics and things.
Sure.
You've even retrieved cars out of there, have you not?
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We've taken out, up in the Methuen-Drake area, Andover area, we've taken out 46 cars now. And the newest car was a 2005 BMW X5. And other than that, the oldest one that we can date probably is somewhere around the 60s, you know, 60s. So we've had other cars that were so rotted that we couldn't get out that were much earlier than the 60s, you know, something. We found tires in there that were from like a Model T Roadster and stuff like that, from something from the 20s.
46 cars in pieces thereof.
Yeah, my son is one of our divers. When we see a shadow and we think that it looks like it might be a car down there, my son will dive down there and he'll see what it is. And one time we did it, he came up and he said to me, there's not one, there's 7 of them down there. And the 7 cars were kind of like lined up like a train under the water. So he takes a strap and we strap them and we float little buoys so we can find them again. And then we get help from a towing company, Cody Towing, and they come with their big crane, a real giant crane. It has about a 200-foot cable on it. And my son stays in the water. We get other divers that help us too. Another fellow named Lloyd Bell, he helps us out a lot too. And we hook up these things and we drag those cars out of there and get rid of them.
I'm just going to ask you, with about 2 minutes left, I just want to say that does the police department then get involved in any particular community and check the VIN numbers to see where these cars belong when they were reported stolen? Because I imagine that's what the case was.
Well, they do a lot, yeah. It's most of the time it's really not a stolen car so much as an insurance fraud.
Really?
Where people just want to get rid of it because they can't make the payments on it, or the car's been damaged so badly, or needs a new transmission, and rather than buying a transmission for it, they can get the insurance money and buy a car that has a transmission.
So it's like a cold case file for automobiles.
Yeah, but the insurance companies still, when we pull it out, the insurance companies still have to make good for it.
Well, you know, I've got to tell you, just about in closing, this is probably the quintessential example of a neighborhood watch, but having it to do with the river, okay, and in everybody's backyard. Quickly, if people wanted to be able to get involved from even a young age category to an older age category and everywhere in between, they can Google cleanriverproject.org to see how they can get involved and be able to help you, help the community, and as a byproduct, help themselves, no?
That would be great, yes, we'd love it.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. Dennis Houlihan here from the Clean River Project, the educational coordinator. We hope to have you back and give us a refresher on what's coming up.
Well, we're not going anyplace quick.
That's terrific.
Thanks
again. We hope that this program has been a point of reference for you. And until next time, my name is Frank Novak. Thanks very much for watching.